What happened at Ramon Airbase in the Negev desert before dawn today is not being reported with the accuracy this moment demands, and I want to be direct with you about why. The institutional reflex of every government involved, Israeli, American, and Iranian, is to manage the information environment around an event like this in ways that serve immediate political needs rather than public understanding. I am not here to serve those needs. I am here because what actually occurred, the confirmed impact of Iranian Zolfaghar 4 ballistic missiles on Ramon Airbase, represents a military event of a caliber that the past 50 years of Middle East conflict have not produced, and the emergency session that Tel Aviv's war cabinet convened within 90 minutes of those impacts is the appropriate response to a situation that is genuinely without precedent in the history of this conflict. Having spent years in military intelligence environments where targeting outcomes are assessed with a precision that press conferences invariably obscure, I can tell you that demolishing a hardened military airbase with ballistic missiles from 1,800 kilometers is not a provocation. It is a statement of capability that every competent military analyst in every capital is right now treating as a fundamental revision of the regional threat environment. Let me walk you through exactly what happened and exactly why it matters. Ramon Airbase, designated Nevatim's southern counterpart in Israeli Air Force operational planning, sits in the Negev at an elevation of approximately 870 meters. It serves as the primary basing facility for the F-35 Ish Adir, the Israeli variant of the Lockheed Martin F-35A, equipped with Israeli-developed electronic warfare and weapons systems integration packages. As of the most recent publicly available Israeli Defense Procurement reporting, Ramon hosts approximately 25 to 30 operational F-35I aircraft, making it the largest concentration of fifth-generation stealth aircraft in the Israeli Air Force inventory and one of the most strategically significant single airbase assets in the region. The F-35I is not simply a strike aircraft. It is the cornerstone of Israel's long-range precision strike capability against Iranian nuclear infrastructure, and every realistic Israeli contingency plan for addressing Iran's nuclear program depends on F-35I aircraft operating from Nevatim and Ramon in coordinated packages. Striking Ramon is not striking a military installation. It is striking Israel's ability to execute the central option in its strategic deterrence posture against Iran. That is why the War Cabinet convened in emergency session. The strategic implication was that immediate. Before we go any further, I need you to understand the Zolfaghar 4 with the technical precision this situation requires. The Zolfaghar family of ballistic missiles represents a development lineage that Iranian missile engineers have pursued with impressive consistency since the late 2000s. The original Zolfaghar, which Iran publicly displayed in 2016, was a solid-fuel short-range ballistic missile with a range of approximately 700 kilometers and a stated circular error probable of around 500 meters, which for a ballistic missile system in 2016 was competitive. The Zolfaghar 2 extended range to approximately 1,400 kilometers while introducing guidance improvements. The Zolfaghar 3 incorporated terminal maneuvering capability derived from technologies shared between Iranian aerospace engineers and their North Korean counterparts, pushing both range and accuracy parameters toward qualitatively new performance levels. The Zolfaghar 4, which struck Ramon tonight, is the fourth-generation evolution of this lineage, and what Iranian sources have characterized as its specifications, combined with the targeting outcome we are now assessing from available imagery, suggests a system with a range between 1,800 and 2,200 kilometers and a circular error probable in the range of 20 to 30 meters. That accuracy level at that range, if the strike evidence supports it, places the Zolfaghar 4 in a category of precision that changes the calculus of every party in this theater. The guidance architecture that achieves 20 to 30 meter accuracy at 1,800 kilometers in a ballistic missile system reflects a specific technical approach that Iranian engineers adapted from Chinese and Russian design inputs available through various transfer channels that Western sanctions were unable to fully interdict. The terminal phase employs an imaging infrared seeker combined with GPS-INS navigation hybridization that allows the missile to update its trajectory against a stored target image in the final seconds of flight. This is not science fiction. This is the same class of technology that the United States incorporated into the Joint Direct Attack Munition family in the 1990s, that China incorporated into the DF-21C in the 2000s, and that Russia deployed in the Iskander-M system, which has been observed in operational use in the Ukraine theater. Iran's access to the underlying engineering concepts came through legitimate scientific exchange, through procurement of dual-use components, and through the kind of reverse engineering that any competent aerospace program conducts. The result is a ballistic missile that can reach Israel from deep Iranian territory and hit an individual aircraft shelter with a precision that makes hardened facilities vulnerable in ways that changed the fundamental logic of airbase protection planning. What the mainstream media will not tell you is what the imagery from Ramon reveals about targeting precision and about what specifically was struck. Israeli military censorship has restricted detailed damage photography from circulating through standard channels, but signals intelligence and the accounts of personnel in the area that have filtered through regional monitoring indicate impacts in the vicinity of aircraft shelter complexes on the eastern side of the airbase, the section of the facility that Israeli Air Force planners would most logically use for high-value aircraft dispersal during a period of elevated threat. A circular error probable of 20 to 30 meters applied to aircraft shelter coordinates means that a properly targeted Zolfaghar 4 salvo can achieve direct or near-direct hits on reinforced concrete shelter structures designed to protect aircraft from blast damage but not from direct ballistic impact. The physics of a warhead with the Zolfaghar 4's estimated payload capacity in the range of 450 to 600 kilograms of high explosive, impacting the roof or entry threshold of a reinforced aircraft shelter is not compatible with aircraft survival. Stay with me, because the strategic interpretation of this strike is where the emergency session in Tel Aviv becomes fully comprehensible. For years, Israeli contingency planning against Iranian nuclear facilities rested on the assumption that Iran possessed no reliable capability to strike back against Israeli military aviation infrastructure in a way that could meaningfully degrade the offensive air power Israel would need for subsequent strike packages. This assumption underlay the logic of Israeli deterrence. You can threaten Iranian nuclear facilities convincingly only if Iran cannot credibly threaten to eliminate the platforms from which that threat originates. The Zolfaghar 4 strike on Ramon has challenged that assumption with operational evidence. The War Cabinet is not simply responding to an attack on a military base. It is responding to the potential invalidation of a deterrence framework that Israeli security strategy has built its regional posture around for a decade. Here is what actually happened in the emergency session in terms of the options matrix under discussion. Option 1 involves an immediate and large-scale retaliatory strike against Iranian military aviation and missile infrastructure, accepting the escalation risk in exchange for attempting to reassert deterrence through overwhelming response. Option 2 involves a calibrated response targeting specific Iranian missile production or launch infrastructure, designed to impose costs while leaving de-escalation pathways open. Option 3 involves accepting the immediate blow and pursuing diplomatic pressure through American channels while accelerating defensive investments, accepting domestic political cost in exchange for avoiding escalation into a broader regional war. What I have not yet explained is why Option 1 is considerably more difficult to execute today than it would have been 6 months ago. The Iranian air defense modernization that Tehran has been pursuing, incorporating elements of the S-300 PMU-2 system supplied by Russia and Chinese-developed radar and command infrastructure, has created an integrated air defense environment over Iranian territory that Israeli F-35I strike packages would need to suppress before reaching high-value interior targets, and Ramon being struck means the force level available for that suppression mission may have been reduced. The consequence cascade from the Ramon strike and the emergency session flows outward with a velocity that the diplomatic response timeline cannot match. Immediately, the Israeli Air Force faces a force protection imperative that redirects planning attention and potentially operational aircraft away from other mission sets. In the near term, the revelation that Iranian ballistic missile accuracy has reached the threshold of individual shelter targeting will drive emergency procurement and basing decisions that will consume defense budget resources for years. Regionally, every actor from Riyadh to Ankara to Cairo is revising its assessment of Iranian military capability upward in real time based on publicly observable targeting outcomes. At the great power level, American credibility as a security guarantor rests partly on the premise that the military capabilities of American partners and allies are protected by deterrence architectures that Iranian military development has now demonstrably penetrated. At the civilizational level, the world is watching a moment where a regional power has publicly demonstrated the ability to strike with precision at the military infrastructure of the region's most advanced military establishment, from a range that renders most conventional defensive responses inadequate. What happens in the next 24 hours in Israeli decision-making, in Iranian political leadership calculations, and in American diplomatic emergency communications will determine whether this crisis is contained or whether it is the opening act of something that no party to this conflict actually has a plan to manage. The decisions being made right now will echo across the entire regional security order for generations. Watch carefully.